Hello everyone and welcome to the complete and in-depth guide to the Path of Crondis and the boss at the end of it, Zebak. Before we get started, this video is not a gear recommendation. This is a complete guide on how to deal with every mechanic on this path and boss fight as a solo. Or if there's any difference in teams, I'll also speak about those. People really enjoyed the Path to Scabrous and Path to Heck guides that I already put out, so if you haven't seen those, please go check them out. They're in a playlist on my channel. I'll keep this guide similarly structured to those. Please note, there will be timestamps in the description of this video, so you can easily find what you need. The Path of Crondis is, I'll call it the Crocodilian Path. Basically, there's a room where you've got to do a Hallowed Sepulchre style agility course and kill some crocodiles, and the boss is a giant crocodile. Now, unlike the other two that we've already covered, the puzzle room is not randomized, but there are 4 corners of the room and each one has a different pattern for the obstacles to avoid. Let's hop into the game for an analysis and an in-depth explanation of the Path of Crondis. And here we are in game, and this is the Path of Crondis. Now, there's nothing to do outside the room this time, so all you have to do is walk in. There's a plant in the middle of the room, and this plant has health equal to team size multiplied by 100 multiplied by 2. Every time that you collect water from one of these sources around the room, there's 4 of them, you get 100 water in a water container. So you must pick one of these up to actually obtain the water and complete the room. Now, this water is interesting because when you get to the end of the room and put the water in, it's at 100. If you run back and get hit once, you'll only have 50 left. And if you run back and get hit twice, you'll only have 25 left. Any more than that, you'll spill all your water. Sometimes, I'm not sure when, it seems to be at random intervals, there is a chat box message when you get hit that says, you nimbly managed to avoid some of your water dropping. And once when that happened, it went from 100 to 84 for me, instead of to 50. So bear that in mind, there is a chance for a safety net. Now while you're doing this, crocodiles can spawn at the northeast, southeast, southwest and northwest corners. If they spawn and there's no water in the plant, they don't really do anything, they kind of just run around aimlessly. For example, they kind of look at you every now and then, but they just don't attack you at all. They'll just spawn for a little while and not do anything. Now, you can kill these. Honestly, I would put a range or a magic weapon on and just hit them from a distance while you're doing the water. Now, I'll just show you an example of what the crocodiles actually do when there's water in there. So I've just filled up my water, and as you can see, it puts 100 into the plant. Now the crocodiles turn their focus onto the plant. And what they'll do is they'll slowly drain the water from it if they reach it, so they must be killed. In solos, I don't drain too much, but it seems to be between 2 and 4 a hit. To stop them draining it, you simply kill them. And multiple can be on it at the same time. These crocodiles do just randomly spawn in the room. I'm assuming they're on a timer. If there are, it's probably about 30 seconds. Now, it is worth noting, especially in solos, if you go down the same path twice, the waterfall could dry up. That means if you try and get water from it, there is no water to get, it is empty. So in solos, you need to use different paths every time. In teams, however, of 4 or more, you can run the same path, go to the plant and run back to the same area, and by the time you're back in the same area, it will be full again. In duos, normally you have to just swap between 2. Bear that in mind as you are playing this game. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a hit on the way back this time. So if I walk back here and get hit by one of the spikes, you can see I've just been hit twice. And I got the message, your nimble reflexes stops you from spilling as much water. This could be based on agility level. I'm only 79. I'm not sure if this is based on agility level or if it's completely random, but just know it can happen. Now I got hit twice, so I should only be putting 25 into here. But because of the nimble reflexes, it's put 42 in. So my assumption is the nimble reflexes made it 84, like I discussed earlier when it happened before, and then the second hit made it so I lost half of that. The final piece of advice I've got for this path is that if you're concerned about not being able to kill the croc before it gets to the water, you can hold on to your 100 water, kill the croc first, and then deposit the water. And then when you run to your next area, you'll always get back in time before the next croc hits the plant, assuming that you're fast enough. To complete the room, all you have to do is fill up the palm of resourcefulness. So first, we're going to go through the correct method to do every single corner. And then we'll show you what a complete run looks like in a solo and how to do it really quickly in under a minute. First, we'll start with the southwest. Now, if you just observe this pattern for a minute, as you can see, these ones come out in 2s, except for the front one. And then on the way back, they come out in 2s apart from the back one. Now, you do have to keep an eye on the green stuff here. It comes out in either 2 or 3 rows at a time. So just make sure you're not standing on one. But there's a very easy way to solve this room. As soon as this first spike disappears, just click forward and you won't take any damage. And that's how you do the southwest. Now on the other side, so if I grab some water, I do the same thing. So if you watch this spike here, as soon as it disappears, click. Even if there's green on your row, you won't get hit. And that's how you get 100 from that path. Now let's look at the southeast. As you can see, this one's really similar. But instead of these ones coming out in 2s, they all come out in 1s systematically. But the solve for it's the exact same. If you watch this here, as soon as the first one disappears, or a couple of ticks later, you can just run across. This one's genuinely not that difficult either. Same thing on the other side. If you just wait for this one to disappear, you can just click. Now there is a decent amount of ticks between that gap. I think you might have a 3 or 4 tick period to click there, but that's a very simple solve. Now let's get onto the north side. In my opinion, these ones are harder. Now this one in particular, it's the exact same pattern as the one we've just gone over, the southeast, but it's a lot slower. So it looks like you've got to go really slow like this and kind of just walk, walk, walk like that. But you don't. So if you watch this here, as soon as it disappears, you can click. And you won't take any damage. Now that's a really helpful tip because a lot of people aren't really sure how walking works on RuneScape and pathing in general. But it's the same at this side. So as soon as this disappears, you can click and you won't take any damage. Now on to the northeast. This one is a little bit trickier as it's a weird pattern and it's a lot slower. So as you can see, there's not really a systematic approach to this. It kind of sends a few up and then there's another one that's traveling a little bit slower. Like they kind of open up 3 apart. It's a weird one. But the same concept appears. All you have to do is wait until this disappears and then click. And you take no damage. It's basically the same on every path. You've not got to wait around for these, you've not got to do anything awkward, you've not got to do any slow walking. So I am going to show that again because I got hit by the green on the way back, just because I'm a bit silly. But, concept again, as soon as the first one disappears, you run forward. You grab some water, let's just pretend it was here. And then as soon as this one disappears, you run back. And that's it. That's all 4 paths covered. Now I'm going to leave, re-enter, and I'll show you what a normal run would look like. Something that I forgot to bring up is that if you do get hit by the obstacle, nothing really bad happens apart from you losing some supplies, but it does drain your agility and defense as you can see up here. Now this is not a big deal, because personally I bring staminas so the agility doesn't matter, and you also bring restore so you can just restore back to full. So the stat drain is kind of redundant, honestly. It's also worth noting there are other timings to do these rooms, and there is a lot of leniency on some of them because of how RuneScape pathing works, but this is just the easiest method. Just click when the first one's disappeared and you won't get hit. Simple as that. Now then, let's send a full run of this room to show you what it should look like in a solo. First things first, you enter the barrier and grab a water container, and then you pick a path of your choice. It doesn't matter if you get hit on the way through, so honestly you can just click straight to the waterfall, and if you get hit, you get hit. You just get a few stats drained and take a bit of damage. Again, the important part is the way back. So you just wait until the timing's right, and then you run and deposit 100 water. Now, you kill the crocodile, and hopefully you kill it before it gets to the plant, and that way you can just run straight to another waterfall. You can send this again. I could have gone then, but I'm just going to wait to show you a slow version. And then you run and you put 100 back on the plant. If a crocodile's on its way and you deposit the water, it does complete the room. But that is a 48-second room, and I could have done it quicker. It's genuinely not that difficult, and I hope this guide helps for that part. Like I said, if I was on the way back from that second run and there was a crocodile here, if you deposit fast enough, it just ends the room and the crocodile despawns. So you don't have to kill the second crocodile, even if you're a little bit slow. And that's that. That's all there is to this room. I hope it helped going through every corner, because I know some people do struggle on this. Now, let's go look at the boss. Now honestly, compared to the other fights, this one's really straightforward. It has multiple phases. It hits you with an adaptive magic and range attack, so you have to react to it depending what it uses. Then, it'll do one special attack. It will either spawn waves on the south side, or it'll spawn jugs and boulders that you have to dodge its roar with. We'll go through both. If the fight carries on and it spawns a second set of waves, they'll be on the north side. It is worth noting, the specials will always cycle, so it'll always go waves, then raw, then waves, then raw. Or it'll start with the raw, and then it'll go raw, waves, raw, waves. The first waves will always be at the south, and the second waves will always be at the north. For this fight, almost any weapon works. People have used Tumakan's Shadow here, people have used range, T-bow, buffer, people have scythed it. First things first, you pot up, you go into the fight, and you pray a style, and you just hit the boss. Now it's going to fire an attack at me, and if it's a red sphere like that, it's magic, and if it's a big black pyramid boulder, it's range. Another thing to note is that Zebak does have a melee hit. If I stand one tile in front of it, it will do a melee hit like that, and that can hit really high. This is the blood spawn attack. All it does is you run away from it. If you stand on it, it heals and constantly deals damage to you and leeches life. Now, the way to avoid this is literally just run away while you're attacking it. It's nice and simple, and it eventually kills itself. Just like that. Now, this is its wave special attack. For this special, what happens is it spawns waves from the south, and there's a gap. Now, you just hit the boss while dodging the waves and avoiding the acid on the floor. Simple as that. You just avoid the waves and then hit boss. Now, this special that has jugs and boulders is a special that you have to push jugs and clear the acid on the floor. Now, if you don't clear the acid, you cannot protect yourself from its raw attack. Its raw attack will hit the floor, and it'll deal damage everywhere on the floor apart from 3 tiles behind these boulders. Now, if they're covered in the acid on the floor, you have to clear them with jugs. Then you just carry on the fight again, and you adapt to its styles. So these are all magic, and the big black boulders are range, and then it'll spawn waves from the north now, which it'll do because it already spawned them from the south. So again, while adapting and praying, you have to hit it, stand between these, that's a ranged attack, keep hitting it, and then stand between these. And the fight is literally this simple. That is everything to do with the fight. Now, it is worth noting, if I eat up and do get knocked off by one of these waves, you do end up in water down here, and it does damage you. So what you do in this case is you climb up these rocky steps, and then you're back in the fight. And then, as you fight it, it's going to enrage. When it falls below a certain amount of health, I'm not sure what it is, I think it's 20%, you'll hear this Jad death noise. And then, it'll enrage. Now that it's enraged, it'll never ever ever do a special again. It'll just constantly fire boulders out. Won't do the waves, and it won't do the raw attack. Now, at this point, it is worth noting that its projectile attacks have a weird prayer on them. In the sense of, to pray against them correctly, you have to kind of swap at the right time. If I swap to this magic attack at a weird time, you will still take some damage, because you've got to pray against it. It's kind of when it's mid-flight, but if you swap prayers basically as the land, you'll never take damage here. So when it does a range attack, if I just wait until it does the split and then pray, you shouldn't take any damage. And then at this point, all you do is you kill it. It's a very, very straightforward and simple fight. But there are a few tips and tricks to go over, which I'll go through at the end of the video. First, I'll finish this off, and then we'll go look at its invocations. So let's take a look at the invocations. Firstly, it's worth noting that if you have any kind of path on, not only do these level up the boss's stats, they also level up its mechanics. For example, with Arca, the memory game's increased based on the level of Arca. With Zebak, however, I'm not sure what the thresholds are, but do be careful if you have like Walk the Path on. Because not only does it make the wave a 1 tile gap at a certain level instead of a 3, it also makes it so in its enraged phase, it hits faster. I believe it goes all the way to a 2 tick gap. So, bear that in mind. Now, I'm going to look at the boss specific invocations. We have Not Just a Head, which is Zebak will gain access to blood magic. This basically means that it's going to blood barrage everyone every now and then in the fight. I don't think there's a set time on it or anything like that, it's just his attacks can be a blood barrage. Arterial Spray is the radius and healing of his blood magic will be increased. Now, you can't have this on without giving him access to blood magic first, which makes sense. Thirdly, there's Blood Thinners. Zebak's blood magic spawns will be split into 3. Now, as you saw in the first fights, his blood spawn is literally just an orb that moves around. A big orb that'll damage you and heal if it comes onto you. You just run away from it. This makes 3 small ones. It doesn't make it much harder, it's basically a free invocation, you just run away from him. And finally, there's Upset Stomach. Zebak's acid pools will have increased spread and jugs will be less effective. This one's quite tough if you don't get the jug mechanics right on the boulders, but otherwise the acid is quite easy to deal with even on the wave still. And you can hit the jugs on the acid, even on the wave phase. So again, none of these are particularly difficult, but let's go and see each one. Now, the first invocations we'll be taking a look at are Not Just a Head and Arterial Spray. This is just the one that gives it access to blood magic and makes the damage and spread of its blood magic wider. So with this one, it just literally means that it can use blood barrage every now and then. Like that, you see that giant red splat that just came above me? That's it using blood magic. So if this is on in teams, you've got to make sure not to stand together, because it will hit everybody around you and it does 1 hit splat per player. So you've just got to be wary of that. Other than that, that's all there is to it. Obviously, it does deal more damage with the arterial spray on, but I can't really prove that right now. Now, to deal with the blood magic, what you'll do is that while you're fighting Zebak, you will just pray mage at all times and camp it. And when it does a range attack, you flick to pray range and then you go back to pray magic and camp it. This is because it can blood barrage at any point. So as long as you camp pray magic, it's not going to deal much damage with it. And then just flick to range to tank the hit and then go back to magic. And that's all there is to this invocation. Now here is the blood spawn invocation. As you can see, all it's done is it spawned 3. And they're smaller. And they just die really quickly, just like normal blood spawns. It's the easiest invocation in the world, you just run away from them. That's all there is to that invocation, the blood thinners one. Now the final invocation is Upset Stomach. Upset Stomach makes the acid pools have an increased spread and jugs will be less effective. Now jugs normally explode in a quite wide area, and the acid is normally easier to deal with. But if you have a look now, the acid spreads a lot more. And if I pop this jug here, normally it'd pop this acid. But if I pop the jug, as you can see, it only clears a 3x3 area instead of a 4x4, which is a big issue. And honestly, that's all there is to Zebak's invocations. There's not much to them. The first 2 are just blood barrage. This third one is just making 3 blood spawns instead of a big one. And the last one just makes more acid like this. But again, you can just hit a jug to clear acid that's in your way. Now let's go over some tips and tricks for Zebak, because that genuinely covers the entire fight. There's nothing else to talk about for this. Now, one tip and trick that people don't know is that you can actually push jugs diagonally. If I stand on the tile next to it, it goes diagonal and then I can hit it and get a perfect shot into the boulders. On the wave phase, it is worth noting that you can actually hit jugs as they're being attacked by the waves, and it clears acid that the waves are pushing them through, which is a pretty cool little mechanic. On the topic of jugs, another tip you can do with them, especially with the push diagonal mechanic, is you don't actually have to attack the jug. If you push the jug directly into a rock, so if I stand here and push, it actually pops it and clears everything around the boulder. You don't have to hit it, you can just push it into the boulder. Now this does save some time because you can push it and then hit Zebak, and then push it into the boulder and hit Zebak, so that way you're not losing any ticks of damage. If you just do like a Verzik P2 method, you actually avoid all of the damage from its melee attack. Even if it snaps its jaws at your luck, you actually don't take any damage. You can scythe walk this, you can do anything you want, and it just can't damage you with the melee attack. It is worth noting that because Zebak's melee attack doesn't hit you because it's got a tick delay on it, so as long as you're walking back when meleeing it, it means that Scythe might be really good here, and Fang. I've not tested them personally, but it is definitely an option. Buffer and T-Bud do slap it, so maybe it won't be meta, but it could be an option to test out the Fang and the Scythe here and just Scythe walk it, and when the waves appear and the roar attack happens, that's when you'd swap to your range gear. And I think that covers the entire fight, the invocations and the tips and tricks. Now I hope this guide was helpful. As I said, I've got an Arca and a Kefri one already out, and those paths as well. Atmakan will come next with Barbar. I already did release a Barbar safe spot video, so if you've not seen that as well, it might be worth checking out. They're all in a raids playlist on my channel. Thanks a lot for watching. Love you and leave you, and I'll see you next time. Bye!